My name is Josh, and I run an independent wealth advisory firm that helps our clients rapidly build wealth so they can travel more, buy the dream home, retire early, and worry less. Today, I want to talk to you about the possibility of achieving financial independence in just 10 years. Is that even reasonable? Let's dive in. Properly defined, financial independence is when your passive income exceeds your burn rate. And when you build your life this way, you no longer rely on anyone else for an income. And depending on how passive that income really is, you can get complete control of your time back. Who doesn't love the sound of waking up on a Monday and having nothing in the schedule and you get to fill it with all the things that you actually want to do? Now, the overwhelming part is there's like 101 ways to do it, or at least the internet would have you think so. But through my experience of building wealth for myself and helping and observing dozens of other people do it as well, we've developed a guide to achieving financial independence in 2025 and beyond.
So here it is. And the reason this is important to us is because every now and then we have people who come to us and they'll say something like, hey, what do you think about crypto? Or what do you think about this get rich quick thing? And we just want to have a resource for them that we can show them and say, hey, here's how we see people creating financial independence in the real world. Not on the internet, not for some online course, real, actual people. And so we've condensed that down into a couple things, and we've built out this flow chart people can go through, and they can be honest with themselves and ask, hey, am I willing to add 3 to 4 hours a day to my workload now in order to create financial independence? And it brings you one way. Or am I not? And then it brings you another way. But ultimately, we have this matrix here. If we want to create financial independence quicker than just saving up for retirement and doing it at age 65, there's a few ways we can do that. On one end of the spectrum, we're going to have ways that have gradual results, require less effort, less talent and skill, and are more predictable. And on the other side, we're going to have things with quicker results, but more effort required, more talent and skill required, and less predictable outcomes. So let me just bring you down to the very end and show you what's at the bottom, in our view, okay? In our view, we can become financially independent with capital if we invest as much as we possibly can in public market stocks, make sure to optimize tax programs and shelters, use leverage if you're comfortable, and find ways to save more. Okay, that's one way. There's another way we can do it with capital, which is investing in real estate. And so this idea involves putting as much as you can into down payments so you can start accumulating rental real estate. And then you roll all the profits of that into other properties. And if you do that for 10 years, it's possible you could build financial independence faster. The next one that we see very often is media. Produce niche content at least 2 to 3 times a week and post it and promote it and then monetize the audience that you build. That one we are seeing more and more and more. Code. Determine a niche, perform market research on some sort of problem that any niche has, and see if you can build some sort of software application, product, program, or software as a service to solve it. And then move that on over to here, which is really kind of a cheating way of saying, just start your own business, right? Come up with an offer, try and sell it, get feedback, iterate, make it better, promote it, and then spend 5 to 10 years repeating this process until revenue, minus cost to hire out the actual work, exceeds your burn rate. So the idea here is create a service, create a product, go out into the market, see if you can sell it. If it works, keep scaling it until you can pay someone to carry out that task. These are the ways that we see people actually creating financial independence. And it really comes down to starting your own business or side hustle that you have to invest a lot of time and effort into, developing software that can create some recurring source of subscription revenue, becoming an influencer and building some sort of online platform or following, or hyper driving your investment in capital, whether that's real estate or stocks or those sorts of things. When it comes to trading crypto or getting involved in Airbnb schemes or whatever it might be that I'm seeing online, those just aren't things that we're seeing in the real world. And so we developed this to give people more of a reasonable expectation of the kinds of things that we actually see working.
These are all methods and topics your typical wealth advisor doesn't really want to talk about because they want to steer you into one specific route, which is the capital route, right? The route that pays them and builds their business. And so that's what this flow chart is all about. It's about talking about the truth of how young people can increase their income and actually create financial independence rather than managing wealth that they've already created. Now, financial independence means different things to different people, right? Like how much money do you really need to spend to have a meaningful life? How much time are you willing to put in? And are you willing to put a ton of skill development and hard work up front? And lastly, how old are you now? Someone age 30 who needs their capital to last 60 years needs a lot more and has a lot more risk than someone who's 60 and only needs their capital to pay them for the next 30. And so today I want to deep dive into each of these different methods and how possible would it be to use them to achieve financial independence in under 10 years if we're being reasonable. So let's work our way from the most passive to the least passive. And Maybe we'll assume the following. You're currently around age 30, maybe you have $50,000 to start, and you want to create $10,000 a month in gross passive income. So if you're older than that, or have more money to start, or maybe you need less income, you can safely assume that it might not be as difficult in your case. All right, let's start modeling this out. Let's take a look at retiring early or getting financial independence purely from the stock market, okay, using capital to save money. That first example on the furthest right of our financial independence template there. So, okay, let's say we have an ambitious example. Someone makes $200,000 a year, that's gonna grow with inflation, and they're only gonna spend $48,000 a year. They're gonna spend $4,000 per month, okay? That's inflation adjusted. So that's a pretty crazy lifestyle. You're saving almost everything. And so in this scenario, what we find is that we take all of this money and we max out these tax advantage accounts, completely max out TFSA, completely max out RSP. We take all the tax deductions we're getting from that RSP, we plunge it back into our investments. And then we save every other dime we can, and we grow all these accounts at a very aggressive growth rate of 9%. What does this look like? This is kind of in line with that whole financial independence, retire early trend that you might see around. What we find here is that, you know what? Pretty solid job. By the time that this person gets from, let's say, age 30 down to age 41, give them 10 years and then their retirement year, at age 41, they've accumulated a total of $2.1 million. That's pretty quick, but it requires a ton of savings, almost a nearly unrealistic amount of savings, right? What happens now? Well, we shut our income off like we want to do. We want to be financially independent, so we're going to stop working. We want to take an amount of money that's like, you know, in that $10,000 a month gross range, which means maybe we spend $90,000 a year net. And so if we plop in $90,000 a year net as the expenses, what we find is we run out of money really quick. We run out of money at like 68. This idea that you're going to just stuff money away for 10 years and become financially independent very quick from the stock market alone, tough. You have to make a lot of money and you have to spend very little, like an uncomfortably small amount. But okay, what if we do something else? What if we leverage ourselves to the absolute tits? This is not investment advice. This is not investment advice. This is not investment advice, okay? I'm not advising you do this, but let's say we want to just be crazy and see how quickly we can make this happen. Same scenario, someone makes $200,000 a year adjusted to inflation. They're gonna spend $4,000 a month inflation adjusted. Same idea as before. We're gonna pile into all these tax advantage accounts. We're gonna take the tax refunds. We're gonna pile them into other investments, but this time, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get an investment loan. We're gonna get leveraged up. We're going to go to some cracked out lender. In their defense, not totally cracked out, investment dealers or banks or institutions will sometimes give a creditworthy person a loan for half of the amount they have invested. So you can use your investments as collateral. And so you post your investments as collateral and they will loan you about 50%. So we're gonna take these two personal accounts we have and we're gonna leverage them. So every year we're gonna add a big chunk of money to this investment loan and we're gonna funnel all of those investments into our taxable account. That way we could write off the interest. That's just a little more tax efficient. We're gonna grow all these at 9%. Where do we get this time? Well, if we take out that leveraged loan every year, we find ourselves, okay, now instead almost at 3 million. So that leverage allowed us to get there a little quicker, but now we're gonna have to pay off that investment loan. So we're gonna pay off 567,224. So it'll pay it off completely. All right, now we're gonna have that investment loan fully paid off and we'll see what we are able to do. So now we get to this point where we are 41, that investment loan is now paid off. Thank you, bank, for giving us all the leverage. After the debt, we are left with 2.2 million. Interesting, right? And so now if we try to see what that would get us, how much retirement income could we live off of after 41? $72,000 per year. So a little bit better than our previous example when we didn't leverage, but now we actually have some semblance of a real, if we're able to spend $72,000 a year, that probably means we're making about $100,000 a year in investment income. Can you create financial independence by leveraging up and investing a crazy amount of money and all that sort of thing? Sure. Problem is, what if one of these periods in the markets just isn't that strong? So let's say we're like 25th percentile in terms of what our investments get over the course of our life. We're gonna see something pretty ugly probably. Yeah, we run out of money. And so this is kind of the main idea. Financial independence, purely off stocks, if we're trying to build it up and then spend it over like a 60-year span, it's pretty fragile. And so there's gotta be better ways to do this. Long story short, to achieve financial independence of around $10,000 per month gross, you would need to make at least $200,000 a year, save at least 50% of your gross income, and then use maximum leverage on an extremely aggressive investment mandate. The late Charlie Munger, a man we all admire very much in the investment world, said something to the effect of, there's 3 things that bankrupt a smart man. liquor, ladies, and leverage. And so I really would not recommend this, especially if you have a pre-existing toxic relationship with either booze or women. Not to mention that your retirement picture thereafter becomes extremely fragile as well if you get a bad sequence of returns in retirement, or if inflation comes in higher than expected, well, you're kind of screwed. That's why I believe the best use of public market investments like stock and bond portfolios is usually for one of two things. First, creating a passive income once you've already accumulated the capital in some other way, maybe through the sale of a business or a windfall. And secondly, creating this financial independence the slow and steady way, the patient way, by accumulating a portfolio of investments over a very long period of time that can grow and compound, and you can really get the benefits of time, right? The second you start trying to force things in this camp, they destabilize. And I mean, forget actively trading stocks or Forex, right? This isn't even passive income because you're actively having to trade it, and that's not to mention the whole thing's a hoax. Moving on. Let's talk real estate. Maybe you know a real estate zealot. You know, the kind of people who don't think there's any good investments in the world other than real estate. Well, you know what? I've owned a couple rental properties, and it could be a great investment. In the case of real estate, right, you buy a property, you rent it out to other people, you make passive income in three ways. You charge more rent than the property costs to run, the value goes up over time, and the tenants, as part of your expenses, are paying down your mortgage. But the thing is, if we want to get financially independent really quick, you could, and I've seen this done, use the equity that you're building, right? All of these things, appreciation of the value of the house, the pay down of the debt, maybe cash flow that you put back into the property, all of these things go to increase equity, which can be borrowed against to buy additional properties. Now, let's model that out. How about we try some sort of hyper snowball real estate investing 10-year plan? Okay, let's see here. So we have the same scenario. Someone's making $200,000 a year inflation adjusted. They're only gonna spend $4,000 a month inflation adjusted. And they are going to take every single dime they have, that $50,000 to start, and they're gonna pummel it into a rental property. And we're going to hope that this rental property, we can just find rental property after rental property that cash flows $500 a month with 20% down, okay? So we're gonna be a landlord, we're gonna buy houses, we're gonna rent them out to people, we're gonna take the $500 a month in profit, and we are going to roll them into paying off debts, and we're gonna roll them into new rental property. So what happens here? Well, in the first year, since we make $200,000 and we spend very little, we own a rental property and we can buy another one because we have enough for another down payment. Okay, so in the second year we have two rental properties. So we're making $6,000 a year from the first one, and then in the second year we buy another one, and now we're making $6,000 from the second one. And then in the third year we buy another one, and we're making $6,000 from the third one. But all that time we're racking up more and more and more and more loans, right? And so as we go through, we run into a problem. And I've modeled this out in a separate spreadsheet. In Canada, you are only allowed to have so much debt before the bank goes, no, that's too much, that's crazy. And so we have this thing called the gross debt service ratio. You can only take 39% of your total gross income as debt payments. And so I've calculated this out. If we have this income and we have these rental properties, half of this income that we get from the rentals adds to that eligible income. So the amount of income that we can get loans against grows, but only at a rate of 50%. So for example, if we earn $6,000 in new rental income, only $3,000 of that goes towards increasing how much we can take out. This column shows the max amount of money we can put into debt payments per year before the bank says, nah-uh. This shows how much we've used. So our mortgage expenses and our heating expenses and our property taxes, these things that go into the gross debt service ratio, are about $15,000 per property. So what eventually ends up happening is we add one property, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we run out of access to loans. But the nice thing is because we've been saving so much and we've been pummeling all of these extra savings into new properties, by the time that year comes around that we run out of the ability to get credit, we pay a property off. And that's why I have colored this part in yellow. Because what happens is we can actually get another property, signal it in green. All the years where we can get another property are in green. This would have been a red row, but what happened is we paid off one of these properties, and so we can acquire another property without affecting our gross debt service ratio, our DDSR. And so now we can get another property. And so we're going through the years, and then eventually, by the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th year, we just can't get any more credit. At that point, everything goes red, we can't get any more properties. But what we can do is we can take all of that money we would have put into funneling into down payments, and we can put a massive amount down on our mortgages. There's another assumption we're making, which is that there's no prepayment penalties. Okay, so we're assuming that you could just pummel all this money back into your mortgages. Boom, you eventually pay one off, and then you pummel all of that next cash flow and all that earnings you're making into the next property. Boom, you pay that one off in 3 years. You pay the next one off in 3 years. And so we're in this hyperdrive mode of using real estate to get financially independent as fast as possible. Can we do it in under 10 years? No. You cannot. It doesn't get you there in time. And so what I found is that eventually you own a bunch of rental properties where a mortgage is paid off. And so that increases the cash flow from each rental property. So for instance, in rental one, see, here we're making $500 a month or $6,000 a year inflation adjusted because we're raising the rents. And then boom, 1 year, all of a sudden it goes up a bunch. That's because we paid the mortgage off, and now that all goes towards our cash flow. That gives us more to pay down other houses. So it's this snowball of real estate accumulation with one catch. The one thing that hurts is eventually we just run out of the ability to get more debt, and we probably are driving ourselves crazy because at this point, if we have 7 rentals, we're managing probably somewhere between 14 and 21 different tenants. It's a disaster. So if you call that financial independence, sure. And so what we find is it would take us a while. It would take us until we are about 51. So hey, if you want to go rapid snowball, accumulate as much as possible, retire financial independence off of a real estate kind of leveraged snowball idea, you could probably do it in 20 years. But there's a few things we're not thinking about, right? That whole time we're making 200 grand. We have a full-time job and we're only spending $4,000 a month. So we're managing properties, we have a full-time job, and we're not spending anything. We're not really spending on ourselves. We save every dime of cash flow towards due down payments or paying mortgages down. We can find property after property. There's no lack of opportunities of properties that cash flow $500 a month. There's no vacancy in these properties ever. There's no major repair costs on any of the properties. There's no prepayment penalties, and we can find a crackhead lender. When I look at this and I think financial independence in 10 years, starting from $50,000 and a high income, probably not gonna happen. Now, this is probably the one that's the least relatable to the most amount of people, but in our observation, we have seen it done, and we do have clients who have built software products that freed them from the 9 to 5. And so there's this whole idea of digital products, software as a service, right? I'm just trying to tell you the ways that we actually see people becoming financially independent. Developers do, because what you can do is you can find a niche where you can build a software product to fix someone's issue. For instance, you find a way to build a better software for bookkeeping for veterinarians, and all of them just freaking love it. And they all tell their friends, and they all tell their business associates, and they tell their competitors, and now everyone is using your software. And so they are all on this subscription type service, and you keep your users happy, and they send you recurring payments. Maybe you build Chrome extensions, maybe you create website templates and you sell them online. If you're willing to put in the time to do research on where there's a niche that's underserved, if you can then go and build a software product, or you could build an iOS or Android app, or you could build some way to monetize a utility that you build, that is likely a substantially better way. In almost this sense that we're starting a business, that is a much more likely way of creating financial independence in a 10-year span. The software that I was using to create and model these financial scenarios costs me thousands of dollars per year, right? And they have hundreds of users. So if you can find a niche market with a distinct problem and you can automate a solution to that, and then you can combine that with great marketing and feedback and effectively building a business, you can free yourself using software. And the challenge here is finding something that people actually want, right? And then promoting the crap out of it. So it requires this cycle of research and creation and feedback and iteration. But if you did that for 10 years, I sincerely believe you could get 1,000 users paying $10 a month for something, or 100 users paying $100 a month. And that's why in our guide, if you have the willingness to put the equivalent amount of a part-time job into building a software product or an application, and spend 5 to 10 years iterating on it, promoting it, you could definitely create a passive income from doing this. Now, you probably know at least one influencer, right? The basics are that you build up a following on one of these major social media platforms, or you build up a newsletter, you build up an email list, and over time, as that audience grows, you can advertise to them, you can sell digital products, you can build communities. We have many clients who have started creating content 2 to 3 times a week around some particular niche, as weird as it could be, and they went on to create an income from it. And one of our clients, in fact, runs an influencer monetization agency They represent hundreds of influencers across North America, and they help them optimize how much money they make from the platforms. In preparation for this video here, I asked him, how much would an optimized influencer make? How much would they make per year per member of their audience? And he took a minute and he said, obviously it depends, but a reasonable expectation if you're optimized is that you would be making around $1 per follower per year. And if you're exceptional, it could be as much as $3. And so let's use $1. But the whole idea here is that if you can accumulate more than 120,000 followers in any niche, you can likely make $10,000 a month if you optimize for monetization. Now, in the past, and even over the last 5 or 10 years, this was probably seen as a method of making money that was for the fringe or people who got lucky and got viral. But I think more and more, as we see more and more clients get into this, it's becoming a very real way to make money and build a career. So if there's a niche topic that you're really interested in, you could definitely create financial independence in 5 to 10 years if you're willing to put in the work upfront into producing that content and building an audience and monetizing it. In conclusion, is creating financial independence in under 10 years possible? Yes, it is absolutely possible. However, the quicker you want to do it, the more risk you'll take, the more effort you'll have to invest upfront, the more talent and skill will be required, and the less predictable your results are going to be. And so I think this is why the vast majority of people are likely best suited for building it slowly over time with capital, the old-fashioned way. But hey, maybe you're not the vast majority person. Also, the longer the amount of time you want to be financially independent for, the more fragile the whole system becomes. You can't predict inflation or the sequence of returns you're going to get on your capital. And so it's probably a good rule of thumb that you should always be actively producing economic value in some way to make things a little more robust. The great news is, from what we've observed, when people find a way to create an income that is disproportionate to the amount of time they put in, most of them learn to love it, and they realize it wasn't the work or the act of work that they hated all along, but it was the work that they were doing that they hated. But that's for another video. All in all, I thought it was important to maybe summarize some of the ways we actually see financial independence being created in the real world. And no, we don't see it being done with Forex trading, ever. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.